I should.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Door to Door. I'm Virginia Stanley, joined by my esteemed colleagues. Who's with me?
Lainey Mays.
And Essie.
And today we have with us the one, the only, the wonderful Wanda Morris, author of All Her Little Secrets, which goes on sale today. Wanda, thank you so much for coming on to have a little celebration with us. I'm going to turn this over to Lainey to do a quick intro. And then we're going to just raise a glass to you, my friend. It's a fabulous book.
Wanda, thank you so much for coming on, because I feel so lucky that I've got to share this journey to publication, because it was a long journey in some ways for you. I know. I'm not sure. I know. Because it took a while for this book to get into where it is now, but it is publication day. All Her Little Secrets is on sale today, and it is amazing. It is our lead read. It was our lead read for the season. So everybody at Harper absolutely loved it. And I know I came back to the team. I was like, we have to read this. It's so good. Even before it was lead read, we were just so excited. And so I don't know, do you want to tell anyone who maybe is living under a rock and doesn't know about this book, like a couple of sentences?
Sure. I tell people that despite the body count, because it's a thriller, despite the body count, this really is a book about family. And it is the journey of one Black female lawyer who finds herself caught in the dangerous crosshairs of a conspiracy after she's rapidly promoted to replace her boss.
Yeah, it's so good. And it not only is it a thriller, but it has so much lace in there, like the back and forth between Elise's past and present. Those scenes are so beautiful. Like, I just wanted to live in some of those and know more of those characters. And then you have this overarching, mystery at the core, but those scenes were so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Well, Wanda, we're just huge fans of yours. I know Lainey has a long history with you, but we're just thrilled for you. We're thrilled with #1 Library Reads pick. And so we wanted to just acknowledge the day. It's your book's birthday. And so because it is your book's birthday, every book deserves a birthday cake. So happy book birthday, Wanda.
That's exactly the kind of cake I wanted. I couldn't find a bakery here that could do it.
You can never go wrong with Carvel. So Wanda,
here,
All Her Little Secrets on sale today. Birth today. Make a wish and blow out the candles, Wanda. Lainey, can you take a screen grab of this?
Yes. If done.
Keep blowing, Wanda. Hey, you did it.
Yay! I love that.
I
So
wanted
fun.
a cake just like that. Ask anybody. That's all I talked about. I was like cake or cookies with the book cover on it. And bakeries down here, they're so frou-frou-shi-shi. It's like, oh no, we don't do cake covers. So I was like, that's okay. But oh my gosh, I love it, love it, love it. Oh.
Yeah, you got to come to Queens for Carvel. That's all it is, baby.
We love doing these because it's just so cool to see them on a cake. I don't know, something about eating a book jacket.
Yeah, there's something about eating the book jacket.
Yeah. Well, speaking of library reads, I asked you before we got on because I wanted to make sure you're cool with the show, but we surprised you. We didn't mean to pull one over, but we just love an honest reaction. And we called to surprise you when you were the #1 library reads pick for November, which that's a lot of books publishing.
Crazy. That is just crazy. And I got to tell you guys, yeah, you pulled one over on me, but I still am kind of in the surreal state about that. Like, librarians, I love librarians. And I think and thank from the bottom of my heart every single one of you. I I know you read tons of books, and for you to read all the books that you read and you said, yeah, we like this one, just means so much to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you guys too for inviting me here. I mean, like, how cool is it to get to spend your launch day with librarians? Like, yes, I'll have some more, please.
Pretty cool.
I love that when I asked you, I was like, you're probably busy. It's a long day. Do you want to come on for, you were like, try to stop me.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's just so great. And again, thank you, every single librarian out there, because you guys, I've said this before, librarians are superheroes in regular clothes. You really are. So you had a great impact on my life. Wrote a book in a library. Like, come on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
No, your book is it's such so layered. It's a thriller, and that's super fun. And I love that. And I love the whole backstory of the main character, all that building and the family story. There's just so much to this, and that obviously was recognized by everybody who's read it. So for folks out there who haven't yet read all her little secrets, you must. It is. You won't forget it.
Thank you.
So maybe we should show a minute of that video. Kind of fun, and then they can go watch the rest. We'll have the link for them. So
Okay.
just quickly. Oh, well, actually, let me make sure that you can hear it. Okay. All right.
Couldn't say that better myself. And it is all of those things. It's just an absolute page turner, and such heart at this book as well. I mean, those characters are, at least Little John, there's so many layers to this book. And it's a joy to publish something like this, truly. Well, Library Reads is a list that comes out every month. It's 10 titles. Keep voting and share the word with your patrons. And this is a terrific way to do it.
Yeah. So Wanda, with all that being said about Library Reads, we may have some more information for you as far as the votes for the November list, because your book comes out November 2nd, so it would make the November list. We might have just received an email that says you've not only been selected, but you're the top #1 pick for November.
Wait, what? Whoa! What? No! You are freaking kidding me. What?
I'm sorry we had to be a little secretive, but
what's happening? What is happening?
please go watch the rest of that video, because we had such fun after.
And as you can tell, my brain is always on like a 45-second delay, because you're speaking the words, I'm hearing them, I'm nodding, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Wait, what? Wait, what?
No.
Okay, despite the fact that I work with words very frequently, I obviously don't understand them very well when they are spoken to me.
It was so genuine, I think. And also, well, we did a podcast because your daughter is my roommate, and we brought her on, and it was a fun little surprise at the end. So please go watch the rest of that video, because it was amazing.
And just keep in mind when you watch it, I did not have a makeup artist. I did my own Pennywise clown makeup with the mascara all over my eyes.
You were fabulous.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. We were all in tears. My wife was in tears in the kitchen listening. And so fabulous.
You guys got me good, but it was such a wonderful moment. Like you said, Virginia, I absolutely, I've saved that video because I've looked at it now at least 7 or 8 times. And every time I do, I still cry. So thank you. That was a good one. You guys got me good.
I think we were as happy as you were, if that's possible. We were really,
gosh.
You know, really thrilled.
And then your I know we don't have a ton of time, but just before we go, do you want to tell them about your event tonight for the launch?
Yes. So, like, as if dreams don't come true when you just merely publish a book. Harper Collins, you wonderful, brilliant, genius devils that you are, have paired me up with Jocelyn Jackson. So I will be in conversation tonight with Jocelyn Jackson at 7:30 Eastern. Thank you very much, Cheris Books and More, for sponsoring us. So you can find the link on, I think I've plastered it everywhere, but if you go to WandaMoyersWrites.com and to my events page, it's there. You can go to Cheris Books. I think it's Cheris Circles, but Cheris Books, just look it up, and under their events page as well. But that's tonight at 7:30 Eastern.
I will put it in the chat right now.
Lainey just read my
okay.
mind. Lainey's like Radar O'Reilly. Read my mind.
Oh,
It's true.
You're so funny. Yeah, so I don't know. I can't believe this day is here. Like, it just from we've been talking about this book for so long, and it's such an important book. And you know, not only you keep turning those pages because it's a thriller, but you are talking about, you know, darker themes. They're darker themes, and they're important themes.
They are.
Especially when, you know, as a woman reading it as a woman in the workplace, when she's the only woman in the room. That kind of stuff is what you dive into, and it really resonated. So thank you for writing this book. I know I say it all the time, but we feel so lucky to have been on the journey with you. And we can't wait for the next one. So
yes.
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank you guys so much. Somebody asked me yesterday, well, how do you feel? And I said, I'm not quite sure what to feel because it still doesn't feel real. Like, it's been such a long journey, and to be here and to have it out into the world, I cannot thank you enough. And Lainey, Lainey is my second daughter. As you know, people who know me, she is my daughter's roommate, but you know, I call them my girls. And you know, you read this a long, long time ago and was encouraging me from the start, even when I said, I don't think that's that good. And she's like, oh yeah. So to you, love you, darling.
Oh my God.
I'm not
going all over again.
Not doing it. No, man.
not doing it. It's a day of celebration.
That's right. Not today. Not today.
Well, Wanda, to you and to everyone out there, I envy you for getting through this book for the first time. Lucky you guys. And I am bidding you adieu now as well. So be well, everyone. Lainey and Essie taking it on from here. Lots more to come today. So sit tight. And Wanda, again, happy book birthday to you.
Thank you
And
so much, Virginia. Mwah.
Let's eat all the cake.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you so much. Happy Publication Day.
Thank you so
it.
much. Thank you, Lady Essie, Virginia. I love you all. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, all right. Essie. We have the controls, right?
It's about time.
So Virginia, for everybody watching, Virginia has a book list webinar, which if you want to go see that, you can sign up for the replay. So no worries, but she had to run to do that. And we have a special guest for you, which I am bringing on now. And then we will do a little title presentation. So thank you. Oh, one moment before we do. Hi, David. Before I introduce our next guest, I want to play a quick video to remind you of a really cool event that's coming up with our friend Carol Fitzgerald from the Book Report Network, and she has an event that she wants to tell you about. So let's hear that before we get into our title presentation.
Hi, it's Carol Fitzgerald from Book Report Network, website where you probably know bookreporter.com and readinggroupguides.com. And I want to thank Virginia and Lainey for giving me the opportunity to tell you about a very special event we're going to be hosting the evening of Tuesday, November 16th at 8:00 p.m. Jim DeFeed, the author of The Day the World Came to Town, is going to be joining us for one of our Bookachino Live book group events, an opportunity for us to discuss the book with him and also for you to ask questions. So why am I picking this book right now? Well, going into Thanksgiving, I feel that this is a really heartwarming story, which took place on September 11th, 2001 in Gander, Newfoundland, when 38 planes were stuck on the tarmac there and told you're not flying into US space. And the town there came together and said, what can we do for these people? We're going to feed them, house them. What else do we have to think of? And all these people just gave of themselves during these days to just make sure that their international guests, many of whom spoke different languages, felt comfortable and at home, including some animals that were on the plane. It's just this heartwarming story. It's a book that I read back in 2002, and it touched my heart so much that, for honestly, I really couldn't talk about this book for years without tearing up. And I just feel that it's one of those beautiful celebrations of humanity and people just being wonderful to each other. Contacted Jim and told him I'd love him to be our guest, and learned that the book has been updated with a new version for 2021 after the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And what Jim has done is gone back and found some of the characters that are in the book and updated their stories, which is just incredibly fun. Also, if the storyline of this sounds kind of familiar to you, it was the inspiration for the Broadway show, the smash Broadway musical, Come From Away, which, if you haven't had a chance to see it on Broadway, it's airing on Apple TV Plus right now. We think this is going to be a very special evening. We hope you can join us. Links to be able to sign up for this event are on both bookreporter.com and readinggroupguys.com. And I'm betting Virginia and Eleni can share it with you as well. Okay, thanks. And we look forward to seeing you there.
How wonderful. I feel like we have commercials now. It was a very wonderful interlude. We wanted to remind you that, and Carol was so nice to send us that video. Please sign up for that. The link is in the chat, and she's taking questions prior to the event. So if you want to know how to send her a question, let us know. It's going to be a special conversation, and Carol always knocks it out of the park with her interviews. So we were just really excited that she wanted to send this short clip directly to you guys. And yeah, so that is that. And now, without further ado, we're going to move on to the next part of our program. And I'm going to introduce David Pomerico, the editorial director at Voyager. Hi, David.
Hello.
Thank you so much for
Welcome.
doing this.
No, my pleasure. Love talking about books.
Yeah, we always love having you on because you are such an advocate for all of your books, and you just speak so well to them. And we wanted to have you on, and you were out of the office and you still told us sure. So we really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
No, it's like I said, it's my pleasure. You can see I'm in my car. I'm in a parking lot, so I'm not driving, so I'm not distracted, and I'm ready to talk Harper Voyager.
I love
Awesome.
it. I love it. And
So
we have a
many
lot of
people.
librarians that are super excited for this because just Harper Voyager puts out such great titles, and that we have such fans, but also people who want to know about the new stuff. So if you're listening while David's giving a little presentation of some upcoming titles and you have a question, feel free to type it in and we'll get it. We'll read it. So, all right, I'm going to hand it over to you, David.
Thank you.
Okay.
So 2022, especially spring 2022, is a super exciting time for Harper Voyager. We have so many debuts on our list, whether it is actual debut authors, whether it is debuts that are YA authors now doing adult. We're adding a lot of fresh voices to the list, and I can't be more excited about the books I'm going to talk to you about right now, starting with Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. I don't know if you've gotten your copies of Library Journal yet, but this just got a starred debut of the month review. So thank you all for, if you were advocating for it. Like, this is such a special book. It is the first part of a duology. We're very into duologies at Harper Voyager. You're gonna hear that word a lot, which is weird because it does not spell check correctly on any program you use, but we use the word duology a lot. And one of the things that is so exciting about this is it's a fantasy retelling of the myth of the moon goddess, Chang'e. And it's about her daughter who is sent down to the immortal realm, has to like flee celestial soldiers, and has to kind of find her way in the world. So you have that kind of, you know, lost in the woods vibe, but she's very resourceful, and she becomes like the personal companion to the celestial prince Li Wei, but she doesn't just want to like ride his coattails. She wants to, you know, forge her own path, because eventually she wants to be able to get back to the moon and free her mother of essentially the imprisonment of being the moon goddess. In doing so, she becomes a fantastic warrior, like realizes that she has magic of her own, becomes partnered with a very young, strong general, Wen Ji. And as you can imagine, you got a young woman, two incredibly handsome young men. So you got a little bit of that love triangle. This is right on that border of YA and adult crossover, which is something I think at Voyager we've been doing incredibly well. If you've liked City of Brass from us, if you've liked Sarah Beth Durst, I think like this is very much in that that realm. Like, I also think though, like I'm listening to She Who Became the Sun right now, and while that's definitely got a darker, you know, like more of an edge to it, like there's a similar vibe of here's a capable young protagonist who is going to do what she needs to do in order to achieve her goal. But this has that lush romantic feel of a lot of Chinese television movie dramas, which is, I think, the part that separates it. That romance aspect is very much tied up into this duology. And the really, really cool part about this is that this book comes out in January, book 2 comes out in November. So the complete duology will be out in 2022. I think you're going to be hearing a lot about the name Su Lin Tan, and I can't wait for you to read it. All right, I think up next we have The Blood Trials. This is N.E. Davenport. As you can see, it's a little bit sci-fi. It's also a little bit fantasy. So you've got kind of a far future world kind of butting heads against a kind of magical based kingdom. And in the middle is this young Black girl who whose grandfather had been a war hero for the really modern technocratic society, and he dies. And it turns out, and this is not really a spoiler, he was murdered. So she has to infiltrate the the elite training school for the Praetorian Guards. This is like the special forces who not only learn how to like be like the most efficient killers, also get like super cybernetic enhancements and really become super soldiers. The problem is the society is very misogynistic. It is also pretty racist, and she, as a Black woman, does not fit in. On top of that, she has another secret, which is she has blood magic. She has the magic of their enemy. If anybody finds out, she is definitely going to get kicked out. She's definitely probably going to be executed. So it's a fine line, a fine balance between, you know, wanting to do well enough to serve her kingdom while also trying to destroy it from the inside. Again, duology. So The Blood Trials is book 1 of The Blood Gift. And the second book will be coming out in 2023. Debut author, Nia is incredible. She's got a lot of energy, and it really comes across in these books. I really think if you loved something like a Red Rising, that's where this is at. It's definitely playing in that realm. It probably skews, again, a little bit closer to that YA adult crossover, which, if you're asking me, I think that is a very like prevalent trend in sci-fi and fantasy right now. I think a lot of those readers are starting to realize that there's stuff for them on the adult list. It is adult. There's some really good sexy times, which I'm always a fan of. There's a lot of violence. Not everybody survives the Praetorian trials, but I think it builds and builds towards that second book, which I know I'm about to get in from the author, and I'm really excited to read too. So again, two great debut authors right out of the gate. Next up,
David, I have a question
yes,
about duologies. So
yes.
is there I mean, this is kind of a general question, but duologies versus trilogy, like, is that kind of a natural choice usually, or do you kind of decide prior after they write the first one that it's only going to be a duology?
I mean, the funny thing is, I think most times authors, when I get pitched a submission, they're like, "Oh, I've got this idea for a series. I think it's a trilogy." And then when I talk to them, they kind of realize that that middle book, like, is a lot of
Mm,
fluff.
yeah.
And that's not always the case. Like, great trilogies are great, but like lots of times I think like you're just trying to stretch out something that doesn't necessarily need to be stretched out. Like, one of the things that I think is really cool about the duologies we've been doing is, like, while we would maybe call them epic fantasy, they're not about quests. They're not necessarily about journeys. They're usually about like singular plot objectives. So while there is an epic scale to them, and there will be, flying across the country and, like going to different places and having different adventures, it doesn't need, I think, that length that like we've been kind of ingrained to expect in fantasy. And so what you get is tighter, complete stories that like really focus on, and usually this is the case, on a single POV character, which is, I think, part of what we've been focusing on with these duologies. Is really saying, hey, like, maybe you can have dual POVs, but really, like, if we just have this one character and we just focus on their story, like, we can have a complete series within a calendar year. And to me, that's really, really exciting.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Totally.
There is
So
a
next,
question. Actually,
yes.
before we move on, there's one question from Amy White. Are there times when book one shows duologies like this one, and then it leads to more books? Like, is there a time when it just doesn't go to plan?
I think it can definitely happen like that. Like, in the same way, I think we always try and focus on a book one to have that standalone feel no matter what. So you can read, say, like, The Blood Trials or Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and you can be completely satisfied, because like at the end of the day, there's like a clear break in the story. Like, the main characters, whether it's Jingyin or, oh man, I am blanking on The Blood Trials. Oh shoot. Like, I'm sorry. It will come to me. But either way, like they are, they have achieved their goal. It might not be the entire goal, but they've achieved something. When the writer starts writing, like, if they come to me and they say, listen, like, this book's going to be like 200,000 words or something, like, we might say, okay, cool. Like, A, like, do we need to just cut it down, or B, does it need to be 2 books? It hasn't happened yet. I really feel like what saying something is going to be a duology does is really focus the reader, in the same way that, like, if an author wants to write like a novella or a short story, they really have to decide what is the core of the story. And in doing so, like, you do, I think, get just an overall tighter set of novels.
Wow. Awesome. Can I actually ask you a question based just on the genre? You know how there's this mix
McKenna, yes, I'm sorry.
uh,
Thank you.
there's this
That's
mix
right.
bet-
Okay, good.
There's this mix between like you said, young adult and adult fiction that's kind of crossing over in science fiction and fantasy. I've heard the term new adult kind of thrown around. Have you heard that as a way to describe that?
Yeah, I mean, new adults like been bandied around for, I want to say, like as long as I've been in publishing. It always used to like refer to contemporary like YA that like was just even just a little bit more sexy, you know, like usually like college age kids. And it was kind of like I always felt like a marketing term more than, you know, like an actual subgenre or demographic category. So like there were definitely books that like were trying to be new adult, but like it never really caught on, and it really never caught on, I think, in science fiction and fantasy. So I think for me, I think the word crossover has become that that word, because Harper Voyager does adult fantasy. No matter what, like I think in terms of tone, in terms of like character motivations, in terms of like how like they're like describing their relationships with each other, like it is firmly, I think, like for adults. But that being said, I'm a little bit older. Like I didn't grow up with a YA section in, you know, a Walden Books or a Borders. Remember those? Even in my libraries, like I had an adult library card, like basically by the time I was 12, because all the science fiction and fantasy books I wanted to read were over there. And so we 100% think that teenagers will read these books. We also know that the majority of YA readers are actually adults, and that we think that like they will also come to these books too. I think especially through libraries where like price point doesn't matter as much. Like that's like one of the key distinctions when you're like shopping for them. But I would say like there's no reason why somebody who likes, say, like a adult I mean, I'm sorry, like a Sarah J. Maas wouldn't like say the next book we're going to talk about, A River Enchanted, you know, because they play on very similar themes. It's just slightly different, you know, thought processes about you know, how the characters are interacting with each other. And sometimes not even that much. Sometimes it's just a distinction we're making as publishers as opposed to the readers themselves. I'm always of the opinion that like these are good books. If you like science fiction or you like fantasy, there's absolutely no reason why like you shouldn't be able to either read YA or read adult and enjoy them both equally as much. And so like, yeah, I feel like new adult hasn't really been like a term that I've heard a lot in the community, but crossover is something that I hear a lot.
Awesome. Good to keep that in mind.
And speaking of crossover, you might all recognize Rebecca Ross as a best-selling YA author. This is her adult debut. It is again a duology. This is A River Enchanted. It is secondary world, but it is, you know, very much based off of like Scottish, you know, myths and legends. It focuses on an island very much like the Isle of Skye, except, you know, A, there are girls going missing all the time, and B, a kind of border between like our world and the spirit world. And the main characters, Jack and Adara, like basically have to come together. They do not like each other. You know, it's one of those. They have to come together and try and figure out A, like how to get the girls back, and B, how to like maintain this border between the spirit world and the real world. And one of the keys to that is music. Jack is a talented musician, and like there's magic there. I always love like the idea of the magic of things that like of art. So whether it's like the magic of language or like the magic of music, like it's a very fascinating like idea to me. So when the editor for this book, Vedika Khanna, like brought it to my attention, I was like, yes, you have to get this for the Voyager list. This is right in our wheelhouse. Rebecca is a super talented writer. If you've read any of her other stuff, you'll know that. And this was, again, it was just a little bit more mature. It was a little bit darker. It was focused on things just a little bit more adult. Like it kind of like the characters, their responsibilities were not just towards themselves, but towards like a larger population. And I think that is a very kind of subtle distinction. And YA like will oftentimes lead to that. Here, I think that's from the outset. Again, duology. This book comes out in February. The second book comes out also in 2022 in the fall. I believe the first week of December. And I don't know, I just think like there's always been something magical to us about Scotland, like it's all misty and green, and like especially as Americans, we have like this idea that there's something fantastical about it. I've seen this book comped to Ursula K. Le Guin and Patrick Rothfuss, not just internally, but by like reviewers. I believe that was PW. I think that's spot on. I think like there is a lyrical nature to this, not just because it's based on music, but I think it's enhanced by those thematic connections. And yeah, and I think this cover is absolutely stunning. So I just think like people are going to be drawn to this.
That is a gorgeous cover. I was just thinking that looking.
Agreed.
I mean, again, like speaking of gorgeous covers, like God of Neverland. I'm just gonna shout out because like he's a friend, but Chris McGrath, who does all like the Jim Butcher covers, did this cover for us. Very different because of the nature of the story, but what Gamma Martinez is doing here is kind of a tried and true formula, especially something we've been seeing a lot. The retelling, the taking of classic tales and twisting them. In this case, though, he's not retelling Peter Pan. What he's doing is continuing the story of Peter Pan about 25 years later. And this is the story of Michael Darling, the youngest of the Darlings, who accompanied Wendy and Peter Pan to Neverland a long time ago. And when he came back, he was filled with the wonder of being in this storybook place. So much so that he felt the need to protect it. And so he joined a secret organization called the Knights of the Round, where basically he and a bunch of other knights would go and protect the narrative. This is part of the Defenders of the Lore series. That's what we're calling it. And ultimately something like sucked him out. Like there was a bad mission and he didn't want any more part of it. So he did like he wanted to be in like the most logical profession. So he became like a train engineer where everything's linear, everything's on a track, everything's timetables and schedules and gauges. And his imagination started to fade away until one day he gets off the train and he sees an old comrade, a young woman named Vanessa. And basically like, once you're in, you're always in. And they tell him Peter Pan is missing. And the issue with that is that like, if Peter Pan's missing, then imagination is maybe being destroyed. And so he agrees to go back. He's the only one who knows how to do it. And as you can see, like he encounters Hook, he encounters some of the Lost Boys. Neverland is kind of crumbling around, and it's just action, adventure. It is definitely like a boy book, but I feel like it has a lot of elements that will appeal to any kind of reader. You might be able to see this. Brandon Sanderson absolutely loves this book. We do have a second book. Like, the cool thing is the first book is about Neverland. The second book is about Wonderland. So like, as the adventures go, Michael and Vanessa are going to, be going into different storybook lands and, solving problems there. So it's an idea that like can obviously keep continuing. It's probably as close to urban fantasy as you're going to see these days. I feel like urban fantasy has like been a tough genre, unless you're already an established like urban fantasy, but this plays into that historical contemporary fantasy, where it's the real world, but magic is also real. It plays on such similar, familiar stories, which I think is a great entry point. Most people know Peter Pan, but probably haven't thought a lot about Michael Darling. This is a great way to like kind of maybe get to know him, and maybe you're going to run into people like Wendy and Shmi and all those other like characters that like you're familiar with from either the book or the cartoon.
I'm very excited for this one. When it was launched, I think everyone was like, say what now? And I was just thinking, get ready for my really silly joke, but the love of Peter Pan never gets old. And I think it just is such a cool series. I was thinking like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but like people who like stuff like Once Upon a Time, or like those retellings and like uncovering of those fairy tales might really find this interesting.
I think so. Like I think like it keeps things very familiar. So like Neverland is the Neverland you basically remember, but now it's from an adult perspective. If you're thinking, oh, this sounds a little bit like Hook, you're not wrong. Except like, instead of like Michael Darling like having to rediscover that he's Peter Pan, it's about a person who's always kind of believed but got jaded, and it's not quite about I don't know. I feel like it builds off of a lot of those retelling traditions while being something new and really like kind of cool and adventuresome. And I love the idea that like this is a standalone book, and then the next book will be another adventure. So I think those retellings. I also think like if you were a fan of like the Kevin Hearn books, Hounded, Hexed, Hammered, where like each encounter was with like a different like god or religion or like myth or whatever, like I think that like also like is a very good comp to these books.
Okay. And we have a question from our friend Lillian Dabney, and I don't know if you said this, but it says, do you feel the God of Neverland might be a crossover as well?
It's funny, like the toughest thing is like none of the the protagonist is like in his 30s, so like there's like I think a teenager would clearly, I actually think like probably like somebody even like as young as like late middle grade might even be interested, but like it doesn't have any children or young adult protagonists. I still think though like it's very readable. It's in terms, so like the language itself isn't like dense. It's an adventure novel, so I guess like in the same way like is like oh man, like a Robinson Crusoe, like
Yeah.
that might even be too dense compared to this. Is like this is very straightforward. I think you could pitch this to a young adult audience, and I think they'd get into it. Like probably the key element that's not there is there isn't a romantic element, like, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that, like Michael and Vanessa are actually like partners and like colleagues, as opposed to like, oh, will they, won't they? It's pretty much like, no, like, I respect you, you respect me, we have certain skills, let's, you know, take care of business. And I feel like that's going to continue into book 2.
Perfect. Wonderful.
All right. I think then the last book we're going to talk about is, you know, written by somebody you might have heard of, Janelle Monae. This is a collection of stories, The Memory Librarian, based off of her album, Dirty Computer. I can't tell you how exciting this is. For one thing, it has been in my head for 4 years to do a book with Janelle. She is probably one of the biggest names in science fiction that we don't talk about as being one of the biggest names in science fiction. Obviously, she's a fantastic musician. She's a wonderful actress. She's a brilliant activist. Like, but all of her albums are like built off of this incredible world, whether it's the ArcAndroid world or this Dirty Computer world. Like, she has created characters and she has filled those worlds with life. What these stories do, and Janelle has connected with 5 incredible BIPOC LGBTQ collaborators, is kind of tell like the before, during, and after of the album Dirty Computer. Now, do you need to like have listened to the album? No, of course not. Should you? Yes, it's amazing. She's such a good musician. But I think everything, like, these stories are contained enough and explain enough of the world, each story does, that like you will get a sense of what's going on. And the biggest thing is that there's this overarching organization called New Dawn that wants to essentially like steal your memories in order to control how you think, and in doing so, to keep everybody clean, everybody on the straight and narrow. To be a quote unquote dirty computer is to be an anomaly, to be abhorrent in their mind. In our mind, we would say, oh, that's an individual. That is somebody who has made personal choices and is just being who they are. So whether it's about your gender identity, whether it's about your sexual orientation, whether it's about your religion or your love of a certain kind of music, or just like the idea that like, I want to be able to party when I want to party or whatever, like all of that's being repressed. And these are stories that show the lead up to that, show some from the perspective of New Dawn. So the titular story, The Memory Librarian, is about a very powerful member of New Dawn, kind of trying to come to grips with what her power means and how it affects others. It's such a fascinating look at what the future is, while, as any good science fiction story does, touch on like present day issues. You've probably heard the word Afrofuturism a lot recently. Like, this is very much in that tradition. So just a brief core concept of Afrofuturism is not just the kind of advancement of like Black art and Black people into a hopeful future, as opposed to, so like this, like it might sound dystopian, but we would never call this a dystopian world. An Afrofuturist world like is all about getting past that. It's about envisioning a hopeful world that also, though, taps into not just like the science fiction elements, but the fantastical elements, the mystical elements. There's a lot about memory here that's not just about like kind of like erasing memory with computers and machinery, but also about tapping into memory, such as like racial memory and time memory and earth memory. Like there's a lot about connecting with, you know, literal dirt. And that's one of the stories features Jane, who is the main character in Dirty Computer. That's Janelle Monae's character in the short film they did for the album as well. Like there's something about connecting with the ground that has always been part of African American literature to begin with. So if you've ever read Song of Solomon, it's a key aspect. Like I think that's part of the tradition, which is again what makes Janelle so brilliant. She's like hyper literate and shows what like you can do by taking classic literary fiction and science fiction and fantasy and coming together and really like just showcasing these brilliant voices within this world. I can't wait. Like you're gonna see a cover soon. You're gonna be blown away. Like this is like, and again, debut author, which is very exciting.
That's crazy. Janelle Monae is amazing, and to have her on this list along with all of the great contributors, that's insane. I'm so excited. Yeah.
I am too. Yeah. And obviously like we have other books coming out next spring, but I really wanted to focus on, you know, these like debut voices, just because like I think you're gonna like already know like when you hear about the other books we have coming out. Like Jesse Mahalik has a new book coming out, like you know like how great she is, so you can like I think easily dip in and get excited about her. For these five, like the names might not have been as familiar for you, or they were familiar but you didn't realize what they could do. And I'm telling you, like we have worked really hard to get as many different types of stories and voices on the Voyager list these last 5 years. And 2022, while not being the culmination of that, like we're still working, we're still striving to get you new voices and new stories. It's a really exciting moment to have all these debuts like joining the list.
Yeah. Wow. I always enjoy hearing you talk about new and upcoming ones because you just knowledge abounds, but it's always, I feel so excited after. Thank you for giving us a overview of some exciting ones. We made an Edelweiss catalog for the librarians watching, so they can go, they have to write all that stuff down, they can go and find it. And hopefully if you don't know much about sci-fi fantasy, that was a good intro for what is coming. If you love it, you found something exciting and new. And I just have one question, and I have already told you this, so it's not a surprise, I hope. But David, I wonder if you could tell us about maybe some current trends in the sci-fi fantasy world and maybe like what you're looking for when you're acquiring these days.
Yeah, so I think I touched upon a little bit, like I think crossover is a big thing. I think a lot of like the books that you've seen popping, especially like this past year, for the Wolf and the Woodsman, She Who Became the Sun, like a lot of these books like do have a little bit of that YA crossover potential, and I think that's something that like has helped connect to wider audiences. I think like epic fantasy, like secondary world fantasy, is still prime like for sci-fi and fantasy publishers. I think like finding those stories where magic and monsters and you know, crazy fantastical worlds, like they still appeal because we want to escape, we want to get out it there. So I would say like in my mind right now, like the market looks very 75-25 fantasy sci-fi, with a lot of it being epic fantasy and then that contemporary or historical fantasy. And then on the sci-fi side, I think like what has really been appealing has been space adventure. So a little bit of space opera and a little bit of military sci-fi, but I feel like the military sci-fi space is really really doing well on like the indie side. And so a lot of those authors are gravitating in that direction. But I feel like space and just contemporary fantasy in general, like allows for playing with a lot of current tropes about diversity, about identity specifically, and about community that we might not have been seeing as much. So I think like you've got a little bit more hopeful stuff, you know, like that really kind of started with like that Becky Chambers, you know, call it hope punk, call it whatever you want, but like just the idea that like, hey, like it doesn't always have to be about like blowing up something. It can be about like just having conversations that still have tension and conflict and drama, and about like meeting people and learning about them. So I feel like more and more recently the focus has been on character as much as it ever has been. But like I think what was the book that I just read? The Jasmine Throne. Like it really is, the world is lush. It's fantastic, but it really comes down to like, who are these characters and how are they interacting with each other? I feel that's the same way like with Daughter of the Moon Goddess. That's the same way with The Blood Trials. That's the same way with, you know, all of these books that we had come out this year, that are coming out next year. So and then like retellings, you know, and retellings that are tapping into probably non-Western stories. And that even means like non-Western European. So like more Eastern European stories. Ava Reed is a great example, whether it's The Wolf and the Woodsman or her next book, Juniper and Thorn. You know, tapping into, you know, that Slavic Jewish mythology, I think is very important. You know, obviously we have books influenced by Asian mythology, whether it's China or we have books coming out down the road inspired by African myth, by Egyptian myth, you know, even like something like A River Enchanted, where it's like, okay, oh, we've seen Scotland before, but like this isn't Scotland, and it's also not a necessarily a familiar myth. It's like it's a little bit of familiarity because I think we know that general world, but it's not so over the top. I mean, so like blatant of a retelling. It's a wholly original story, and I think people like that. I think they like the inspired by as much as they do the like, here's a complete retelling.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you. That, yeah, expanding on myths and retellings in other places of the world is super important and exciting. And even when you said to escape, yes, everyone feels like they need to escape these days. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. And we have that Edelweiss catalog for you guys, so you can go check out all these books, get e-galleys if they're available. Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Bye.
on. Bye.
Bye. Safe travels.
Thanks.
So to wrap up, I just want to remind everyone about this Jim Defeat event with Carol Fitzgerald. So thank you, Essie, for showing that. The link is in the chat. Be sure to sign up if you want to write a question. She would love to have it. So please let us know. And you can find her on the Book Report Network or thebookreporter.com. And we hope you go. I think that's it, Essie. I think we covered a lot of ground today.
I think it's time. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you next week for Door to Door, 2 p.m. on Tuesdays. Bye.
Bye, everyone.